When you trust Ferguson Roof Systems to replace your roof, we go the extra mile to protect your home and property. On every job, we deploy durable netting to protect your home's exterior and landscaping. It's just one more reason why you should call Ferguson Roof Systems today.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle with you here. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time around. I have a lot of time to kill. We're going to kind of do a round robin of what's happening out there in the weather, not only from Oklahoma, but also around Texas and Arkansas. So we're going to take an extended look at what is happening outside to kind of help you out if you have any plans you're going to try to squeeze in or do something here this evening to see if you're going to be in the clear. So thanks for joining me. Please like and share this video. Just go ahead and take the second you have. Hit the like button on Facebook. Matter of fact, hit the love button on Facebook. And you can hit the like button on YouTube. Until they put a love button on there, you just stuck with the like button. You guys out there on Rumble, again, thanks for tuning in. And also on Twitter as well. So thanks for joining me. And spread the word about AT's weather, if you will, to all of your friends and family. Well, outside right now, my backyard, there was just some hints of a little sunlight coming through out there. You know, you can see it in the brightness of the clouds. And this is kind of looking to the south. If I go back to the looking more southwest, there you can see a little bit more of the peak of that sun coming out. And if I just look due west, there you go. So we do still have some clouds around though, and we do have precipitation just to our south. It's not too far away. Temperature here at my house, 29 degrees. I did not get above freezing today, and neither did you if you live here in central Oklahoma. So the model's busted huge again on the Arctic air. And I was worried about that would do that, and sure enough, I thought the most we could get was 33, maybe 34, and that even happened. 30, I think was what the final was. We'll look at the numbers here in a second. Let's see, let's go over to the big picture. That's what I want to do for right now. All right, so let's just check this out. Let me, I'll turn this off, and then we're going to turn this on, and we're going to do like a little round robin of kind of what's happening out there. So we'll start with Oklahoma. All right, and this is where we have the temperatures that are out there into the 30s. So we did make low 30s across a good chunk of the state. Out here in far western Oklahoma did get above freezing into the panhandle. You do see a lot of radar action though, right? You see a lot of precipitation on the map. Now, there's some good news in all this. We had a lot of dry air that moved in the mid-levels of the atmosphere over the 24-hour period. And what that did is it ate away all the moisture in the mid-levels. So that means all this precipitation that had been falling had been evaporating on its way to the ground in the form of virga. Virga is precipitation that evaporates. So that saved us from seeing anything significant here in central Oklahoma or even eastern Oklahoma during the day today. And it confined everything down south along the Red River Valley, where the moisture was a little thicker down there. The dry air hadn't quite penetrated that far, and there was still precipitation crawling over from Texas. So if we zip on down here toward Lawton and Walters, you guys all down there. Matter of fact, let me press my little button to make sure that I've got the latest data on here. Hit refresh and refresh. Okay, see these little pink things? That's what I was refreshing. That's a freezing rain report. Here's one in Sulphur, also freezing rain. Down here, Wichita Falls, freezing rain. Here's one around Durant, freezing rain. Actually regular rain, but there's no way that's happening unless they're above freezing at that one particular spot. But sometimes the reports get mixed in that. But as you can see, though, freezing rain is officially coming down on the surface and here in southern Oklahoma, whether or not, you know, it had been for the most of the day today. Believe it or not, this is a recent report of freezing rain here in Norman. Now, is that legit? I don't know. There was a little patch, did you see, move through? So maybe we finally moistened up the atmosphere just enough to get some of that to hit the ground here at the 6 o'clock hour. If so, that jives with the forecast, even though the most of it's going to be hanging out just a little bit longer for some more heavy stuff to move on through. It's going to take some more time to kind of finish soaking up the atmosphere. But a pretty good wave did move through, so I believe it. Now, here's the issue. You can get a quick little glaze of ice in that situation. It doesn't seem like much, but remember, it's going to flash freeze, and then all of a sudden you went from a nice road, maybe even a dry road, and boom, all of a sudden now you're on ice, and that can cause a quick accident. So you got to be careful in this situation if you have to be driving out about tonight. And there's a difference here because, like I mentioned before, if you're right around 28 degrees, if you're under 28, road temperatures, even during the day, will have a tendency just to freeze over. If it's about 28 or higher, with the solar radiation, traffic, ground temperature. Sometimes you can get away with it. Sometimes you can have on the major roadways wet roads, but not frozen roads. It's a very fine line that you have to dance. But then once the sunset hits, all that stuff, things change pretty rapidly. Let's go down south into Texas along the Red River. And you can see down here in Dallas, they're also struggling here into the upper 20s to right around 30 degrees. Their biggest batch of precipitation, this round today, is finally moving out. So you do see the tail end of it here moving through Fort Worth and Dallas as we speak, and then down south and west from there. A little bit of a dry area, right? Well, that's the dry slot I mentioned, the water vapor loop that was going to give them a little bit of a break before the next round moved in overnight tonight. Out here in western Oklahoma, all these pink little signs here, again, freezing rain. So yes, they've seen a lot of freezing rain out here into western Texas, all the way down to I-20, down toward Midland, and yes, even toward the Pecos Valley, Fort Stockton, also even at 30 degrees. So that we'd had a little bit of light freezing rain and a little bit of sleet mixed in for western Texas today. Even San Angelo got in on the mix. Let's see, what was the report that came here? Previous ice storm report, official ice accumulation of 1/4 of an inch. So 1/4 of an inch of ice accumulation out here in San Angelo. Let's see. So again, that can cause some sporadic power outages once you get into that 1/4 inch territory. We'll look for other accumulating amounts in other areas. I did hear that Austin earlier this morning was a mess, even close down to San Antonio, where ice had accumulated on the trees, elevated surfaces, and you can still see there's still some pockets of rain out there, some freezing rain, etc. Down in northeast Oklahoma, or northeastern Texas, you're still right around freezing, just west of Tyler. So Tyler's above. We've kind of moderated the eastern fringe of that Arctic air mass. Back up here in the southeast Oklahoma, they're above. And if you look up here in Arkansas, let's see how they're doing. That's a heavy shower right there. Might even be some thunder with that one. Anyway, so that's little trains moving north and east, kind of paralleling up I-30. Arkansas, let's see, Little Rock is at 28 degrees on the north side of town, 30 on the south side, and they're still holding around 30 here in southern parts of the state. So some good heavy freezing rain moving through this corridor, so still being reported as we speak. So again, the status quo here, if we head out east from there, let's go to Memphis. They've been hit hard with freezing rain too. So there's a report there, freezing rain, and of course that continues up I-40. So as you head into Kentucky and Tennessee, they were also flirting with the freezing point during this event. Therefore, they had to deal with some freezing rain in their area. Nashville's at 32, and it just goes on and on. I mean, we're going over here to the East Coast now. We're in Asheville. Now finally they're above freezing out here. Of course, you get to the little elevation terrain difference. But again, west of there, it has been a icing event for a large area of the country. That we highlighted here at AT's Weather about 7 days ago. So this actually panned out to be a pretty good ice storm for a lot of folks. And of course, we yet to see how many end up without power. And we're going to look at the power situation here in just a second. But I want to kind of give you an update on what the radar was doing. And I can tell you what the estimate so far as precipitation is concerned over Texas. So as we mentioned earlier, there were some reports of a 1/4 inch of ice accumulations down here in San Angelo, and let's just see how the radar estimate did in this area. The radar estimate around between 0.2 and 0.3 inches. Hey, that's pretty good. San Angelo itself, again, 0.2 to 0.3 inches. So these are all 1/4 inch reports from National Weather Service employees, and then I think emergency management. Okay, so we take that as gospel, so to speak. Now there will be some differences in radar elevation, so some of these will be estimated a little too high, but this little purple round here is up to 0.8, 0.7. That's probably a little bit of sleet contamination, so I'm going to discredit the extremely high amounts as far as it being pure, freezing rain accumulations. So that will kind of tell me where some of the sleet mixed in. But if we get into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we look at the estimates here so far, Dallas County up around 0.3 of an inch to 4. Well, again, once you get close to Rockwall, points north from there. So north of the county is about 0.4, 5. There's a 1/2 inch of ice. Northern Fort Worth. So Fort Worth definitely hit harder than Dallas. There's a 1/2 inch there. Look at the west side, southwest side of Fort Worth, 0.6 inches of ice. You get down to Weatherford, they're looking at 0.7. There's either some sleet contamination here. There might have been a 0.8 embedded somewhere within this data, but that's 3/4 of an inch of freezing rain here for Weatherford. So Weatherford got pounded the most with accumulated freezing rain for this event. So obviously they would have the best potential for travel issues, power outages, that kind of deal. Now, if we look elsewhere, why does Cox show up every time I do a live broadcast? Hold that thought. Yeah. Okay. So I want you to see what I got to deal with. Whoa! Hold up! Hey! Shh. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you're only 6 months old. What are you gonna do? You're right back. All right. Put you in the closet. Okay. All right. Hey, man, that's live TV. What are you going to do about it? You shut this door. You kids. All right. Anyway, the Cox guy's here to tell me everything they found in my line and my note as to why my internet has been terrible. So, and the kids are, protecting the house. All right, so where was I? Anyway, you just met Larry and Penelope. If you haven't, they are teacup Yorkies. Penelope is the new addition. She's 6 months old, learning from her older colleague there as to how to defend the territory. All right, so let's see. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Precipitation estimates. Oh, goodness. Never dull moment around here in the Tuttle house. Southeast Oklahoma has had a little bit of light accumulation. Not too much on the bucket yet, as far as the totals go. That dry air really kind of saved the southern counties so far. And this is just over the last 12-hour period, by the way. This is not the whole event. It doesn't include sleet and whatever we did have the last couple of days. If we go here to Arkansas, though, you can definitely see where there's been a lot of heavier totals. Let's see. Pine Bluff is up around 0.3. There's 4. Dumas. So there's been some pretty good freezing rain accumulations down here in southern parts of Arkansas. There's Clarksdale back out here to Camden. So there's a little spot here that was favored. That could be terrain induced from the radar. Again, the radar, this is going to be a mesh of different radars in the area. So there's going to be some artifacts in there. So you got to be careful which ones you're querying to make sure they're legitimate. But to take it home down here let's just go down from there. So anywhere basically in the red that you see, amounts are up around 0.3 to 0.4 of an inch of ice accumulations. And you can see there's some dry spots, right? I mean, you can see it's not a completely universal, uniform, collection. It's kind of weird. It's got a lot of dry areas in here that didn't really accumulate a whole lot. But still, obviously, anything you're going to get in this environment will cause some problems on the roadways when it comes to driving around. Okay, so that's the way that looks. Let's go to real time as far as precipitation here. Like I mentioned earlier, for the central Oklahoma area. And I want to show you kind of how the movement on this is to the north. And I've color coded it here where you're going to see the red is for the freezing rain. And that's going to go orange for it thinks it's still there's going to be a little bit of sleet. But that's only because the radar beam is higher up in elevation and it's going to see that and want to paint it a little slightly different phase of precipitation. But you can see real quick, if you blink, you'll miss it. But you see that stuff kind of shoot through here from Grady County through the southeastern sides of Oklahoma. So that was that little sprinkle I think we mentioned earlier that somebody had a report on around Norman of some light freezing rain. So that was probably what that was. It broke through that dry layer, but man, it evaporated really quickly. But the key here is as this line continues to move to the north, that means that the precipitation shield is working its way down closer and closer to the ground. So in other words, it's taking its sweet time to get here across the metro area, but this more of a substantial, steady precipitation shield should work its way in over the next couple of hours. Okay, so that was kind of what I want to talk about with that one. Let's go over to the maps now. And so we'll also talk about the Weather Service and see what they've got on their latest outlook. By the way, for today, like I mentioned, the highs were not above freezing across the majority of Oklahoma. We've got, 20s, 30s, all around this area. There was exception to the rule. Is going to be outside of that zone. So we're looking where we got about to here. We got above freezing in this little quadrant. And here in the northeast, we got pretty close. We got to 32. And then down here in the southeast, we got pretty close. We got from 32 to 35. So basically McCurtain County. So that's kind of how it worked out. So the model's really busted again. Not surprising. It's so funny. It's been a known thing for as long as I've been alive and probably any other meteorologist. And to this day, we still can't get it right on that deal. I don't know what it is. I'm not in the research world to figure that out, but somebody needs to. Okay, so we have kind of a very light wind out there, so that's good. Same thing for Texas. So power outage issues when it comes to wind is not really the issue, and that's actually is what's saving a lot of this from being worse. And I'm going to show you those numbers here in a second. If I do look at this map, which you really can't see that well, my point is to see it, is to show you where all the freezing drizzle and freezing fog and stuff is, and that is all over northern Texas and into southern Arkansas. That's where the heaviest precipitation is. If we do look at the midday balloon sounding from Fort Worth that they launched, they were curious as to whether or not they were going to get rid of some of that dry air. Of course they did. So freezing rain was the precipitation type, and we're going to get some new data that comes in here this evening. They've all launched their balloons now, but it takes about an hour to get all that back. Now, let me see if the data's come in so far. And it looks like it has. Okay, good. This is right on time. So, boy, this must have just came in hot off the presses. All right, so what we got here? So this is Fort Worth. So you guys down in there. All right, so we've got still your warm nose right here at 850 millibars, and that's up around plus 6 degrees. On the negative side of this 0 degree axis of temperature, you've got looks like minus 5 or 6 degrees also, but at a layer that's only about 700 meters off the ground, so about 2,000 feet. So what happens is this is a freezing rain sounding, so it means any more precipitation you get tonight will be in the form of freezing rain. So there you go. The only thing that's going to save you is if you can warm these surface temperatures up from 29 degrees to 32.1, right? And we'll see if that's still in the forecast. Let's see, for Norman, it's a big difference here. We had this whole area this morning dry. In other words, this red line and green line were really separated. It's a lot of dry air. So all afternoon it looks like we moistened up the atmosphere. We've gotten these closer together here. Still a batch here the raindrops have to go through. Hence probably why we had those little indications that we showed up on radar a minute ago. And they fell through this secondary layer. And this is a dry spot here. So it was moist here, but dry in between and dry in between. So we're getting there. We got at least another couple hours to go to finish saturating this profile. Then once that happens, we can get our ice. Speaking of ice, the ice storm warning continues from the National Weather Service across a good area of Texas and southeast Oklahoma and also into Arkansas up toward Memphis, where we highlighted on radar a moment ago. If you do look at the satellite viewpoint in the form of the water vapor channel, this is the upper level low right here. And what happens is, and I'll draw this on here for you as well. So this taps in to the subtropical jet stream, moving on in, and it brings in moisture. Now, in this particular case, it also brought in this little dry slot of air that moved through. So that kind of tendency sometimes to shut down precipitation, at least the light to moderate stuff. Now you can get convective bursts that happen within this when you get enough instability, and like there may be one right there that kind of popped up. But otherwise, it tends to kind of shut things down as far as widespread ongoing precipitation. But what you do see is a lot of moisture bubbling up here in the white area in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So that's that stuff that's trickling over Oklahoma and trying to get us moistening as this system gets closer to us. And there's a lot of instability and upper level lift that comes out of this low that moves into this region. So you get the moisture that it brings in, you get the upper level energy as well. Okay, so now let's do this. What do I want to do? Yeah, we can still do this. So the upper levels, this is the jet stream. It's going to show this guy moving through Texas and Oklahoma through tomorrow afternoon. So nothing's changed on that deal. Path looks the same. It hasn't jotted north or south. It's come in as an open wave. Okay, so look, this is a closed low. And by that meaning the concentric rings around it that you can see, the circles, that means a closed low, very strong. What happens when it comes in an open wave like this, where it comes in like this, and it's no longer like this, it means it's weakened. It means it's lame. It means it's really, So if you're a meteorologist and you want some action, you don't want these kind of open waves to come through, because that usually means the system's dying, it's losing a lot of its punch, and you can see eventually fades away. It still usually has something with it, but it's not like it used to be. Anyway, but that's fine, because we're not really, wanting the worst of the worst anyway, not in this situation. If you do look at the lift in the atmosphere, the reds, there's a big batch here for this evening that's moving out of Texas into southern Oklahoma. That's what's helping generate that precipitation we have now. And that will continue until the secondary wave kicks in after midnight here, moving through Dallas again and up toward northwest Texas. And that moves through northeast Texas, and there's a little batch that just kind of blows through Oklahoma in the morning hours. And then by mid-morning to mid-afternoon, it's still moving through Texas for a little wraparound light rain. That is when temperatures are above freezing, so it really won't matter. So we will be warming things up. I actually only found one model that had any clue about our temperatures in Oklahoma. It's the one that initiated like an hour ago. So, in other words, there was not a single model that initiated either this morning or at noontime today that still had any clue. But this one, believe it or not, actually said, oh, that's what the temperatures are. So it's easy to keep it from here on out, right? All right, so the trend here is to watch it cool down overnight tonight. I'm going to stop it at midnight. The reason for that is I want you to see where the outline of where the cold air is, where, again, if you get any precipitation, it's still going to be frozen. This is down here in southern Arkansas, exceptions in McCurtain County in Oklahoma, through Paris, and then a sharp dip right to Rockwall, and then back down to the east side of Waco, and then down toward Austin, still just north of San Antonio. So that is your freezing line through midnight, which means any precipitation you get along this same boundary on I-35 corridor is going to be more freezing rain. All right, let's go into the morning hours. So there's 12Z. So what has happened at 12Z? Well, we're starting to eat away more on this end here coming into Dallas, parts of this area here in the Kill Country and out here in western Texas. This is the sign that things are finally starting to clear up and get better. Now, the problem also means, unlike the prior data from today that showed a glimmer of hope that after midnight there'd be some improvement with this line of it kind of retrograding to the west. And that means, for example, becoming west of I-35 versus east. And that would, excuse me, that would help Dallas or something to thaw out overnight late. But until then, this is holding it until daybreak hours, a few more hours. Again, which means any precipitation you have will continue to pile up. All right, what happens after that shortly? Mid-morning, so about 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's when we start to see some dramatic changes. Looks like pretty much Dallas-Fort Worth is pretty much all above freezing. The blue area here where it still is freezing is continuing to shrinking. In Arkansas, things are retrograding as well in the south end, coming up toward Little Rock. And by late morning to lunchtime, you can see this. The atmosphere is pretty much recovered. We've all gotten out of the deep freeze. There's a couple little blue spots holding on. But other than that, things have dramatically improved compared to the first time of the day. So that means for travel, the majority of you are going to be fine. If you're leaving late morning into the afternoon, if you've got to go somewhere, the road should be okay by that point in time. Okay, so let's take a look at the RAP, same model, for the precipitation output. Just to show you what it's doing here with the precip here on the south end of the state. It does move it here in the central Oklahoma, the I-40 corridor at midnight. It does have more blossoming, though, down here in Texas overnight, late, 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 o'clock in the morning. And then that activity changes over to green because, again, we've exhausted our Arctic air finally. Took forever to do so. The high-resolution model continues that stuff down the south, moves it here again into Oklahoma City as we head into the later evening hours. So it's dry, of course, most areas now. It's just a matter of time before it does get here. So you do have a couple hours. You can bebop around, but watch the radar trends. As soon as it starts to make its way in the metro, just get off the roads so we don't have to deal with it. Because overnight, again, it'll be slick and hazardous. And then there's 6 o'clock in the morning. So if you're wondering, hey, can we get out? No. I mean, I guess you could, but you better check the roads and the radar. If really, I guess if nothing really happened overnight, sure, why not? Which I don't think that's going to be the case, but you'll just have to see. But my guess is no, you won't. My guess is it'll be stay at home in the morning, take your time, be slow. Schools, etc. That's my guess is going to be problematic. Here is 7, 8, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning. Precipitation's all gone as far as anything substantial. This stuff out here still shows that it might be somewhat frozen. If I take a click sounding here, 20 over 31 degrees, so technically the model's still hanging on to a little patch of cold air around 10 o'clock in the morning from, looks like Ada to McAllister to Muskogee. So if you do live in this area, keep in mind you might have to wait an additional hour to get to about 11 before temperatures do warm up enough to where that's no longer a problem. Let's see. So, ice totals are what they have been. Like I showed you at the beginning of this broadcast, we just kind of looked around 3/10 to as much as half inch in some areas in Texas and Dallas. This is additional precipitation. Let me go with... So, each model is going to have a different view on what they think is going to happen, and therefore they're going to put different amounts. So the problem is you can't get too specific as far as, this spot right here will get exactly this amount. You can't do that. But what you can do is say there's going to be pockets, just like today, where you're going to get very little. Surrounded by pockets, you're going to get some light to moderate stuff. Followed by pockets, you're going to get some heavy stuff. So it's indicating basically probably up to another quarter-inch of freezing rain overnight in a large area here, which does move into southern Oklahoma, southeast into Arkansas and Memphis. So again, easy call, about another quarter-inch, probably max is what I want to say for this entire event through tomorrow morning on top of whatever's out there now. So again, that kind of adds insult to injury. There are, a few highlighted spots that might get a little bit more than that, but they're going to be very difficult to forecast from that. Here's a look at the big picture, which still shows in orange the areas where you're going to have trouble with power and you're going to have trouble with some roadways. Speaking of which, let's do that. Let's take a look at power. So I went to my website after discussing this at lunchtime today. I said, let me just add some more power sites to my website and go from there. So if you go to AaronTuttleWeather.com, or I'll also add it to my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. You can download that. Apple, Google Play, it's free. Just search for AT's Weather, all one word, or my name. And if you look here, I do have Oklahoma power outages right underneath the multi-state road conditions. So let's go down here. Now for Oklahoma, things have been behaving. So not bad. We've had a couple power outages here in central Oklahoma City. And looks like there's some out here across the border there in Arkansas, and I'll show you Arkansas here in a minute. We'll zip on down here to Texas. So Texas is currently, and I haven't updated or refreshed this page, so if I refresh it, it might be a little different. Let's see here. We'll just see if we get a different number, so let it load up. Okay, so new data is still the same. So 3,000 people without power right now from Dallas-Fort Worth, kind of scattered about northeast from there, east and south. Now I understand there's going to be different co-ops in different regions that maybe report different numbers. So I may not have all the numbers on here, but this is just from one of the main websites that does report power outages in the state. So there's not as many as I really expected or could be. But again, sometimes during the day that allows a little bit of that melting that you're not going to get at night. So anything more that we get at night will definitely add up more on the weight of any existing boundaries. Okay, so here's Arkansas that I've got on here as well. So there's, let's see. Let me see. Can I make this bigger? I can close this menu. Yeah, here we go. Okay, and again in Arkansas split, kind of like Oklahoma. There's different co-ops. It doesn't all show on one, but this is the biggest one, and it shows those sporadic areas of power outages. Once you get south and east of Little Rock, there's a lot more of these that are popping up. So they're kind of just hit and miss and sporadic in this region. And so that's another site we can check. And you can do the co-op outages maps here, and you can also do different for Power Outage US is also on here. So there's different ones you can pull up. That way you can get an idea of what power is like in your area. Then also on my weather app, AT's Weather to Go, or on my website, you can click on the road conditions. So we'll click on that here too, and we'll see how things are going. By the way, the 2-inch soil temperatures across the state for us are into the 30s. And usually when you're in the 30s, you have to watch out for frozen precipitation very carefully because they have a tendency to kind of freeze on there. Looks like Brenda said something nice over here on the right. This is my latest Facebook post that she tagged me in. Was the only meteorologist who got the forecast right in days earlier than many in Dallas-Fort Worth. Thanks, Brenda. I don't know. We've talked about that before. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what happened down there, those guys. Let's do the pictures, though. We'll go down here to Ardmore, where things have been a little bit more on the interesting side here this afternoon. So what happens is you click on any of these cameras and you can get the work crews that take a snapshot. Now you do have to watch the time, because sometimes the time might be a little old, or sometimes it might be new. You have to see on each individual picture timestamp. But in theory, you should be able to click on any of these and give you a look. So I see the other picture was too bright, right? That's how I knew. I said, wait a minute, I think that picture's old. But here's one east of there, and you can see the roadway's covered in a nice little sheet of ice. It's got this little plow up here. But you can also see the roads are still blue, meaning that there's still travel. They haven't closed it. It's not shut down. And the traffic is still moving to some degree. But again, remember, it's during the day. Once you get at nighttime, that'll change really quickly. I'm going to show you what happens in a bad situation like that here in a minute. Here in Oklahoma City, and you can do this other parts of the state, you can click on these little moving cameras and you can see the traffic just hauling, right? Everything's fine until you get that flash freeze of precip. And once that happens, what happens is people don't know it. It all happens instantly. And then every one of these guys just ram into one another. Because they didn't expect it. It was just all of a sudden the spotty shower came up, dropped its rain, which instantly froze, and now everybody's crashing. So that's usually how it happens. And you see it on video time and time again. And you get the big rigs that come in there and slam into one another. I mean, it's crazy. But anyway, so that's on the site, and you can expand this picture out to get other areas of the state to see how things are going. Let's see, same thing for Kansas, and I got Missouri on here, Colorado, and then Texas. All right, so we'll just use Texas here, and we'll turn off this ice and snow marker. So you can see obviously the color-coded, just like Google Maps, right? As far as when traffic was moving fast or slow. And Dallas has shut down a lot of their bridges and overpasses because no one could get over them, and they were all getting stuck. So Dallas has been a nightmare for the last 48 hours because of all the weather and the traffic. So that's been an issue down there. And then you can click on like these little cameras. So I'll click on the Dallas camera for one here. And it's going to show you many of these you can click on or hover over, right? And some of these you can click on and there'll be like a live camera view. So let's see here. I'll just click on one that I need like a big picture. Like I can see a lot of traffic in the background. That's kind of what I'm going for. So I don't know. There's one there. But it's not a moving camera. Shoot. So I want a moving camera. But I've noticed the traffic's been a lot less down in Dallas. You can see these still shots, so it's pretty quiet. And probably because either the highways I'm clicking on are closed or detoured off, or everybody kind of stayed home and they didn't want any part of this nonsense. So hopefully that's the case. But you can see here, there still is some action. And you can see the sheen on the roadways. You see how it's kind of, let me move this over. Will it move over? Oh, I can't move it. I have to move this. Interesting. Okay. But you can see like this glaze, like this glare on the roads where they're wet. And that's a problem. Just letting you know, at nighttime, you can get away with that during the day sometimes, but at night, it's a whole different story. So it's just a matter of time for things kind of get a little on the worst side. But anyway, so you can click on a bunch of these little cameras and see how things are going in that area. And we also had somebody asked for New Mexico. So I've got New Mexico on there, and you can click on what New Mexico's got going on. Pretty quiet. And then we can go to Arkansas. And this is what concerned me in Arkansas, man. There was some big rigs just flying on these wet roads. And it was actually still at 28 degrees. And I'm going, boy, 28 degrees with some sun is one thing. 28 and some darkness is a whole nother. So let me close this down. Is it going to load this time? Yeah, it is. Okay. All right. I think I had picked on something here for around Little Rock is what I had done. And I can click on here, live traffic, cameras. And I think I picked on like one of these. And we can go full screen on this. So you can see they're moving. They're moving a lot slower than they were before, but look how wet that road is. And there was one that I clicked on there. I think this might show a little better. Yeah, there was an exit where I saw it coming in and going off, and these guys were just flying down the road. And you've seen, like I said, those accidents where these guys will just start slamming into one another because all of a sudden, done. The wet roads is no longer wet and they're icy because everybody got this false sense of confidence that it's not that cold, right? And if you look, I don't know if you can see it in this image here, that temperature says 29 degrees of this traffic camera. So the other one I looked at had 28, and remember 27 is the cutoff. Now that it's, and that's during the day. So now that it's dark, I think 28, 29 might be enough to cause some issues. So we're gonna see what happens if these guys are still hauling like they did here in the afternoon. I don't know what's gonna happen. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, so that's what's going on right now in the Arkansas area. So we'll see how that turns out. All right, so temperatures around here, we're going to get back into our 40s. Thursday and Friday over the weekend, we'll be back into the 60s, and next week we'll be back down to the 50s. The Twitter feed, this is kind of fun. And I'm going to show you the National Weather Service. So this was Dallas-Fort Worth, a few pictures there. There's some ice accumulated on some of the plants. Dogs playing in the ice there. Let's see, there was some traffic. I've seen a lot of video coming out of Dallas where they were just stuck on the overpasses, bridges, didn't get anywhere. So, and then once that happened, nobody's getting anywhere. So I saw a lot of those today. Oh, there's some deer. That's pretty. Let's see, what else we had up here. It was on I think it was a Texas thing that I looked at where I saw, let me go back. Yeah, there was a cop trying to go up a hill backwards. That didn't work out for him too well. Let's see. And then we had this little scene here. This was in Llano County, Texas. A lot of icy covered grassland. So remember, western Texas got a lot of that little ice-covered action as well. Good old my boy Reed Timmer. He was out there. He was ice chasing in Dallas-Fort Worth. So he was at the Texas World Speedway. Showed the parking lot was frozen solid. And was talking here about how the roadways were wet, the main highways, they were wet, but the side streets and parking lots were already ice covered. And he also mentioned that once it gets dark, he was afraid that everything's going to flash freeze, and then with new precipitation coming in, it was going to be a nightmare. Of course, told everybody to stay off the roads. But so that was his little deal later on, about a couple hours ago. There was somebody down here that posted from San Antonio. San Antonio right here. So even these guys got a little bit of accumulation, not much. Looks like a 16th of an inch or something. But hey, that's something for San Antonio. That Arctic air went pretty far south. Here's Dripping Springs, Texas. Now we're talking. Man, that really an inch? All right, well that's an inch of ice accumulations. Now obviously you don't include the branch in this, which hey, this is a perfect segue, and I did not plan this. How do you measure ice? Find a tree or a shrub. Use a tape measure or a ruler. Since water usually drips, thickness is typically greater on the bottom side than on the top side. You add the two on the top end of the branch and the bottom end of the branch, and you divide by 2. So in this particular case, to make it easy, they showed an example of a 1/4 inch on the top, 3/4 on the bottom, so that's 1 inch. Divided by 2, you got a 1/2 inch. And so your total ice accumulation that you should be reporting to your National Weather Service and or local media representative, or myself, for example, whoever, is what your final total is, and that's how you measure it. So back in this particular case, we wouldn't measure this branch, and I'm not sure of the circumstances of how this was formed. Looks like it's on a tree. It looks like the picture's upside down, but yet the tree limb isn't, so it looks like the ice is going up, which is impossible. So either my mind's playing tricks on me or something. But we would shave a little bit off of this, so we would probably say maybe 3/4 of an inch of ice accumulation. Dripping Springs, Texas. That's nuts. So that's problematic, obviously. Let's see. Well, there's a lot of counties that are highlighted with the power outage, which I did not go to that site, but I could. It was on my website. What did I do? Where is that? Where did I go? Oh, it was here. So let's go back. So that was the road conditions. Well, I almost went there anyway, and now I'm curious as to what that's going to look like. So let me go. Where am I? Power outages. Seeing sideways now. Been looking at computer maps too long. Okay, power outage US. Okay, so that's Oklahoma. We'll go to the big one. 100,000 people without power in Texas. So this is where you can see the brunt of the heaviest ice accumulations were that affected power. So we're at 344,000 total. Looks like the biggest is in Milam County, 13,000. Robertson Falls, Let's see who else. Leon County, boy, just north of Bryan College Station, and you're like, well, man, that's nuts. So why in this area? That's a good question. Short answer, twofold. The cold front put the brakes on, if you remember correctly, right about here, right? And that's where temperature right at 30 to 32 degrees. So that's the critical part for, obviously, to get the freezing rain rather than just regular rain. Secondly, the other issue is it's thin. It's a thin layer, so it's not thick enough to produce sleet. So it's all freezing rain if it's going to happen at all. The third thing is a front itself creates lift in the atmosphere. So there's a frontal period of lift that occurs along that leading edge. So that kind of helps to boost the lift along that boundary. So that means additional precipitation total. So that's kind of the three-pronged approach, and that's probably likely why they've got so much power outage associated with that. So that's the big deal in that case. So I'm kind of glad I pulled that up. All right, so back over to Twitter. Let's see. They had some... let's see, let me go real quick. Oh, by the way, if you've never seen a balloon sounding, I'm going to talk about a balloon sounding. This is the guys, looks like in Midland, that we're doing one. So the little instrumentation is attached to the bottom of the balloon, and they let it go up. And this thing grows huge as it gets up higher in the atmosphere. It usually busts like close to around 100,000 feet. But it takes this instrument all the way up with it, and then a radio sound reports back to the antenna at the base station, and it records the temperature, the wind, the pressure, dew point, all that kind of stuff. And then that way we can build a sounding. We can see what the atmosphere looks like with vertical height. And then that way we feed that into our model data, and then there you go. Boy, that was a fun ride. Yeah, man, you can look at these videos all day long of these guys just slip sliding everywhere. And luckily hit a dry spot, right? Oh, okay. Whoa, see this? Okay, so all right, man. I'm glad you got to see this. All right, let's just do this. This is your public service announcement, right? So they come zipping on down. And obviously this person isn't going to be the only one that loses control. So they gain control. And the first thing they do is they get out of their car to go check, hey, what's happening? Woof, that was great. Now, see these other people up ahead? What makes you think that all these people aren't going to lose control and then come in right where you are and smash you into a pancake? Do not get out of your car. These are 2,000 pounds of steel against your flesh. I can tell you right now who's going to win. Boy, did you see that one? Woo, man. So, yeah, I could look at these videos all day. That's just nuts. So, you got to take it careful, obviously, over bridges and overpasses, and they will sneak up on you. So, the power crews, in this particular case here in this example, are already out working. So, if you think they wait till everything's over, they don't. They work the minute there's a threat that happens, they get stationed, and then once things start happening, they're out. And they go, and they're in rotating shifts, and they get tired, and they work to make sure that everybody gets power stored so that you guys can get it back as fast as possible. It is probably a thankless job that you guys don't even know what goes on behind the scenes, that it can be a mess. Oh, this person got their tree down to their car. But so anyways, there's going to be probably a lot more of these pictures overnight tonight into tomorrow morning as to how much more ice falls and what damage it may do. So let's go over to the Weather Service. Let's see what they put together for graphics, and we'll take a look at those. So this is out of the Norman area. Calling for more ice accumulations down here across southern Oklahoma for this evening. Let's see. The timing on this, they had from 5 to 10 o'clock coming into the south end of Oklahoma City, say, for example, Norman, Moore, Newcastle, Blanchard. By the time we hit the 10 o'clock hour, that might be a little late. It just depends, because once that atmosphere saturates, it can happen really fast. But the general trend is again moving from south to north, and then later above I-40 a little bit later on. So that's the general timeline on how that works out. When they're talking about ice accumulations, though, they're still going for about up to 1/4 of an inch of ice accumulations around the Norman area, and then point south. Probability-wise, your greatest probability is the more south you go, the better you have a chance at getting those higher totals. So that's through Paoli, Pauls Valley. Once you get down to Ardmore, Durant, probably just south of Ada. So I like their highlight here. I've got no qualms about it. North side of town, anywhere from a trace to a tenth of an inch, and which is, again, just enough for traffic problems rather than power outages. So it's a trade-off. Let's see, anything else they had on here? They did have some sleet accumulations way down here in northwest Texas, but that's blah. Let's go over to, who else did we have? We had Tulsa that was on here. They also talked about some icy preparedness for overnight tonight to tomorrow, late morning around this region for freezing rain in the ice storm warning. Now they are saying total ice accumulations up to 0.3 of an inch, so 0.3. Power outages and tree damages are possible. Travel may become difficult. So remember, overnight into tomorrow morning, be very careful out here in southeast Oklahoma. So let's go down to let's go to Little Rock. Let's just do a little around the world tour here. We'll see if Little Rock has anything or if they've been too busy. No, they've been too busy to post any maps. They ain't got time for that. All right, that's fine. We'll go down to Shreveport. Let's see if the Shreveport's been doing anything. Or is this Dallas? Did I go to Dallas? Where am I? Yeah, I went to Dallas. Never mind. All right, so Dallas, we'll just do them. They're already talking about the fact they don't recommend traveling. All right, let's see what they do for power outages tonight. They're highlighting Dallas County, points north and points west and southwest, about additional freezing rain. And they kind of give some ideas here how to prepare for power outage, flashlights, a generator, warm blankets, charging electronic devices, close your curtains and blinds to trap in heat, and have a heat source like a standalone indoor heater to use or a fireplace. And I have no problem with giving how to prepare for a power outage, but I need you to understand something. You don't want to give this advice when no one has any time to do anything about it and all the roads are iced over. Your opportunity to share this message was 6 days ago, 7 days ago, 5 days ago, 4 days ago, 3 days ago, maybe even 2 days ago, but not the day of. But that's just my little personal beef that it doesn't really help, which is why I went out of my way to put my neck out there and say we're going to have a crippling ice storm for a lot of people over a large area, and then we'll work on the exact timing and exact placement in the coming days. Trust me, you want that message out there so people have time to, A, get the word out so they can pay attention, and then start preparing and planning. If they got trips, vacations, if they need to buy a generator, there's all kinds of things people got to do. Ain't nobody got time for this kind of stuff. All right, so let's see. Will conditions improve? They kind of outline a timetable. It's pretty neat. So they do have it by the mid-morning in Dallas-Fort Worth. A little sooner than that down around Waco. Sherman-Dennison also mid-morning. Stephenville also mid-morning. Whereas the afternoon, as you can see, is pretty much all good. That means that all the temperatures will be above freezing and all the ice will have melted off the roads and probably even the majority of all the trees and the power lines. So there's a lag time, right? I mean, ice doesn't melt like that, but it does melt pretty quickly. It just depends on how warm temperatures can get. But as far as the roadways are concerned, again, that should go rather quickly. Let's see, anything else? That's all the other graphics that they had. Let me go out here to Western, to San Angelo, and see if they had any graphics. So they did talk about their ice storm warning, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, likely through Thursday morning. Could be some sleet mixed in. Hazardous conditions, a few power outages also, etc., etc. And they're calling for also for warmer temperatures into the 30s and 40s on Thursday as that system passes by. All right, so let's see. That takes care of the major weather offices. We can see if Shreveport does anything. We'll go find out if they've got anything out. So they do, because they do cover technically the last county in Oklahoma, and they cover the areas that were hit earlier that we talked about with some current power outage issues. They're center a winter storm warning, though, at this point, and their ice accumulations are quite a bit lower. They ramp up on the very far end of their forecast area, so they're barely in the red of 1/4 of an inch once you get up closer to Dallas and away from Tyler, for example. Then, as we mentioned, that temperatures here are going to start to improve by midnight anyway, so this is very, very short term. All right, and then let's see, flood watch. Interesting. So they're talking about a flood watch for 1 to 3 inches of rain. If you don't know that flooding actually kills more people than any other weather phenomenon, believe it or not, even the icy situation, tornadoes, lightning, all that. Let's see, and that's about it for them. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to the radar view. Let's take a look here first off, Oklahoma. See if anything's happening, anything's changed. And looks about the status quo. That little line here is still slowly propagating north. It's taking its sweet time. Let's see, still getting freezing rain reports down here around the Ardmore and Sulphur area, and also here in Lawton, getting a little bit of a, looks like freezing rain report that came in, and that just came in about, looks like 30 minutes ago. So that continues, so we'll see. We'll gradually moisten up the atmosphere down here. Let's go on down to Dallas. Let's take a close-up view of their region. Again, the red you see on the map is the freezing rain that's falling from the sky. It's not snow, it's not regular rain, it's not even sleet. So the atmosphere is warmed up enough to where it should all be freezing rain. And in this particular case, at first they had a little bit of a break on that one panel I showed you, but that's already been filled in for additional areas. So it's like this donut hole that happened right in here, right? See how that dry slide just kind of go from here, move through, got you a temporary break, but then look what happened back behind it. Looks like some convective nature to the rain. So let's go take a look. I should see some yellows if it gets too convective. And look at that. You see the little yellow right there? All right. So we have a little convective element. Just means a little bit more instability. And that's what happens when the energy from that upper level disturbance from the west starts to come out and closer. You start to get a little bit more robust cores of rainfall. And at some point, you might get a little lightning with that if things get a little too carried away. But, there's just more to come here in Dallas. And that's some heavy stuff from Tarrant County to the north and west. The darker the reds, in case the heavier freezing rain. That doesn't mean it's working its way here through the northern counties as well and crossing over into southern Oklahoma. So there you go. So that continues. And that's back out here to northwestern Texas, on down southwest from there to Goldthwaite. Is that San Saba? Yeah, okay. And then, all right. And then, let's see. There is another radar down here I can click on. Just curious, see how Austin, Waco looks like. So you guys are having some very light stuff. Almost drizzle type activity. So kind of like very light freezing drizzle around the Austin area. Just enough to give you a trace, looks like. And some of their earlier reports this afternoon was numerous trees and limbs down throughout Travis County due to icing. As of this evening, over 170,000 customers without power. Look at that. So that went right down I-35. So if you ask me, all right, Aaron, other than you, I'm just kidding, which model did the best, right? That's a loaded question. I can tell you, without hesitation, the Canadian model, overall, hands down, was the best. The biases and the errors that it had are typical for it, which is an overproduction of ice accumulations. And they were having 1.5 inches to 2 inches of pure ice. That'll never happen. I don't say never, but for that to happen, it's like an end of the world event. So you always divide by 2 as a rule of thumb. When you start to see those type of outputs earlier on in the forecast period, eventually it'll settle down, but it takes forever, even sometimes not even until the day of or day before. So that's the only error I think I saw, its biggest bias for most of this event. I will say, though, earlier that it did erode the Arctic air too soon here in Oklahoma for today. It joined the same air that the rest of them did. And it's not a huge air. I mean, it warmed us up by a few degrees. But, hey, when you're talking about a temperature of 32 versus, 36 or 39 or whatever, that's a big difference when you're adding precipitation. So that's the only failure I think I saw of the model for this entire forecast period. Otherwise, it was golden. Now, the problem is, can you then therefore take that forward in time and use that for any other event? No, you can't. But you will have a lot of pretenders out there that think they can. They will, and they'll bust on it. But that's just where you have experience, and you have to recognize the pattern, and you have to have different models and different biases and their weaknesses and their strengths, and you kind of put it all up in a jumbo basket and you figure out where you want to go. Because you're right, and I've heard meteorologists say that there's a model for everyone. There's a model for every outcome. There is, but you got to be smart enough to know which one to go with, and then you got to go with it. You can't be doing this chicken stuff. You can't be going, well, I'm going to pick this one, and then the next day going, well, I'm going to pick this one, and the day after that, I'm going to pick this one. You can't do that. You got to listen, man. It's your forecast. You got to make it, and you really shouldn't be changing it. So some people wait till too late, till the event's already started, and at that point, you're no longer forecasting. You're just knee-jerk reacting, and you haven't done anybody a service. So But not everybody, puts their big girl panties on and just makes a call. A lot of them will just hem and haw and wait and then say, oh, I got it. And they'll brag all day long. It's like, you didn't get nothing. Anyway, that's just a side note of some fun stuff that happens in the weather world. It is a hard field, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. I try my best to get them all right, and I don't get them all right. I get most of them, but depending on the situation, some of them are very difficult. This one was pretty hard. Don't get me wrong. This is one of the hardest ones I've had to deal with long term, just because of the potential. I was like, 3 days? Are you serious? 3 days of this stuff? Come on, man. Doesn't last 3 days. So first you got to get your mind wrapped around that to realize that that's actually going to happen. And then you're like, you got to go with some common sense, right? Well, we're below freezing and it's raining. Well, going to have to call for some ice. If you really want to dumb it down to some really obvious critical thinking, that would be about the lowest form of it right there. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. That's the latest that I've given you. We just kind of, like I said, there was no time constraint here, so I just had time to kind of go around the room, so to speak, and kind of look at everything that was out there to see. It's about 7:15, so we did talk about the fact there's more of this stuff to come overnight, and we'll be wrapping up by tomorrow morning, and then everybody can go back to normal by tomorrow afternoon. But until then, there's still going to be more power outages and be more ice accumulations and all that kind of stuff. Oh, Fabiana just got here. How's Edmund looking? Well, a little icy tonight, just for the roadways. So by tomorrow morning. And Teresa, I missed you every time today. Oh, now you got a replay? I don't understand. Just hit that opt-in thing. Here, let me post it for you again. Come on, just do it. I'm going to send it to you. Oh, I didn't post it earlier. Shoot. Okay, there it is. I meant to post it and I got sidetracked. Probably because the dogs were barking. Anyway, so click that link real quick. It's going to go by on your screen. You can opt in to get notified when I go live. That way you don't miss anymore. Because Facebook doesn't play nice. Facebook is a turd. And if there was a better alternative, I'd be on it. You hear that, Facebook? But there's not. So it is what it is. So we'll go from that. But I am on multiple platforms. So if you do get tired of this, don't worry about it. Jack. That's right, man. Hey, those kids, when they bark, when there's somebody at the front door, I got no control. It's every man for himself. In this case, every dog. But what was I saying? Man, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, get the direct message on here for notified for Facebook if you want. If not, you can join YouTube and tap the bell to get notified. It does a really good job at notifying when I go live. You can do Rumble. Rumble's great now. It was, earlier on, but they finally made some good tweaks. So that's good. Twitter seems to be pretty good too. When I go live, it seems to be there. If you get notified, kind of a deal. Now, they don't have the chat feature, like it used to with Periscope. So maybe Elon will eventually fix all that and it'll become more interactive. I'm sure it's on his to-do list. There's so much he's got to do with that platform to make it better. So we'll see how that one goes. And then finally, I'm on Gab TV, but Gab TV is kind of a very slow-moving platform of revenue. So they have to very slowly build it up. And so the live TV part was supposed to happen over the spring. That didn't happen. They spent that money in better infrastructure for their servers and beefing up security and various other things. They ran out of money and they couldn't do the live part of it. But I'm hopeful that by this spring they'll be able to do that, and that's still in the plans. I haven't talked to Andrew about it lately, but that was the last he had told me. So if that's the case, then I can give you live weather coverage on Gab as well. So that'll be 5 platforms that are broadcast live at the same time. So that way you can find me multiple platforms. The idea is to find you wherever you go, right? I care less what platform you join. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm just providing you what this content creator is, and that is meteorological weather. We do scientific forecast discussions. I give you all the hows, the whys, teach you how to forecast, teach you about the weather, show you the model data, show you the reasons. I give you some of my secrets and tips, kind of a deal. And then we also, of course, talk about severe weather, and then I will do live tornado coverage. Now, for that, I typically do Oklahoma, and then if it goes like into, say, western Arkansas, I'll cover that. If it goes in like southern Kansas, I'll cover that. And if it goes in like north Texas toward Dallas, I'll cover that. Outside of that, I can't cover the whole country because there's too many tornadoes and there's not enough of them to go around. So I got to limit at that. Otherwise, I'd probably burn out pretty quick because this is just what I do for fun on the side. believe it or not. This is not a job. Although, man, it's just about like one. It takes away my resources, my time, everything else. But I enjoy doing it, so don't let that fool you. I've always enjoyed doing it, and that's why I'm here. And I did this, long before there were any other platforms. Started in 2010, Facebook with just the posts and stuff, and then whenever you could go live, I was doing some storm chasing. And then after that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do what I used to do at the TV stations for 12 years, and that was broadcast live. So I built a studio in my office. In 2014, I was doing severe weather coverage and forecast discussions. No one else was doing it. I was the first one. I didn't even think it was that big of a deal. And now look at us. We're at 2013, and now everybody's doing it. So I should have copyrighted all that stuff. I said, no, only me. I'm the only internet meteorologist. Could be no others. Kim, by the way, thank you for the stars. I appreciate you. I see that cup of coffee looks like in that. I need a cup of coffee. Keep going. All right, it's almost 7:30. So what I'm going to do is get out of here, and then I'll come back around 9:30. We'll look at the latest data on the forecast. It'll be a lot shorter than this. This was just a fun time to go look at a lot of weather, just because I had the time to do it. So a little bit much shorter. It'll probably last like 20 minutes. So right around 9:30 or so. And then we'll see what the latest is for the forecast for tonight. I don't expect any big changes, but you never know. Miles might surprise you. Data might surprise you. All right, you guys have been great. Thanks again for watching and commenting and chatting away. And we will see you here in a couple hours. All right, take care.